Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. I got an email from Grant Pulsander. Tornado in South Jordan, Utah today, way near the town of West Jordan. So that caught my attention, and it actually caught my attention yesterday. I started to prepare this video, but then I was like, I don't know if there's enough here, really. It's interesting. I take note anytime that there's a tornado in the Salt Lake Valley or along the Wasatch Front, because they're not common. You know, I grew up in Salt Lake until my late 20s, and I lived there till my late 20s, and always had a sense of peace and safety from tornadoes, you know, because I was always taught that they don't really easily form in that area. Now, there was the one in 1999 that I experienced, the downtown Salt Lake tornado of 1999, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. I've done several videos about it, but I always felt, you know, relatively safe. And then now within recent years, as I'm about to show you, there have been a number of these tornadoes. They've mostly been, well, one was an actual tornado, and then there's been a couple others, including this one that was a landspout, which is a type of tornado. But so there is that like distinction. It's just a different type of tornado. But okay, so let me read what he says in the email. There's a tornado in South Jordan today. I think it is a rare event that you need to put on your spreadsheets and do a video on this. I have some news articles that you may want to look about the tornado. We have a total of 3 tornadoes in the Salt Lake Valley. The first was at Temple Square in 1999. The second was in North Salt Lake in August 2021. And the third in South Jordan, Utah on April 25th, 2024. Now, like I said just a minute ago, I actually have another one. I did a video about it, but you know, it was just kind of like, oh, look what happened. I didn't see any like too much significance to it, but we're going to talk about that one too. So I have a total of 4. I'll show you that in a second. And then a temple being built in West Jordan, Utah. Here is one from Fox 13 News, Utah. Okay, so I'm going to go through the articles that I have pulled up, and we'll just talk about these strange tornado events. And there's a reason why I decided to go ahead and do this video today. Like I said, I was just going to like drop it yesterday, but something happened where I think that I should talk about it. So I'll show you in just a moment. Before we do, here's the Flood the Earth Challenge, where we're sharing copies of the Book of Mormon. It's a motivational exercise and tool. I encourage you to participate. I haven't updated it today or yesterday, so we're at 8,785 copies of the Book of Mormon that have been shared so far, and we're trying to get to 10,000. So we're getting really close to that, and then we surpassed the goal of 1,000 people participating in this challenge. So good job, everybody. And I have yet to set a new goal. Sorry, I keep talking about that, but I will think of a new goal soon. But if you haven't participated yet, I would encourage you to do so. It helps to motivate others and yourself. Just share a copy of the Book of Mormon and then let me know in the comments or send me an email. And make sure to include this up here at the top left, #flood. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and look at some things. So the reason why I decided to make this video today is because there's this big weather event that's been taking place ever since like yesterday, and then it's going to continue over the next few days. And you can see here, this is YouTube as of right now. You have all these weather channels that are talking about it, that there's like a, you know, big, big risk. And this is the biggest like storm of this month, and one of the biggest ones of this year. And just everybody's talking about it. And you'll notice that these red areas on these maps, they're basically centered on centered on Kansas City. That's the site of the New Jerusalem. You know, about an hour from there, that's where you have Adam-ondi-Ahman. You also have Far West in that area, and it's a very important location in the United States for the church. And I was looking at I was watching Max Velocity, this guy right here. He's probably my favorite. I watched the other ones too, like Ryan Holiall and some others, but I like Max Velocity. And he was showing some maps. He showed this one here, Noah's Storm Prediction Center. Okay. And this one shows what happened yesterday. And you'll notice that there's a red dot right there in Salt Lake or the Salt Lake area, and red dots are tornadoes. Yesterday there were 5 tornado reports, most of them clustered here in eastern Colorado, western Kansas, one in Oklahoma. It looks like that's kind of close to Oklahoma City. But then you have this just like outlier over here in Utah, of all places. And the storms travel from west to east. So I don't know what time this occurred in relation to these other tornadoes, but it's a pretty interesting image right here. You have what you know is the storms going this way. You have this tornado in Utah, and then these other ones back east. And it just made me think about, is this some kind of event where it quote unquote starts? And I'm not saying it started with this, but maybe as far as like tornadoes go, does it start with Utah and then it goes to Kansas City, the New Jerusalem area? I don't know. So we're going to have to watch this today and over the next couple days to see what happens, but there's a potential for large tornadoes and a tornado outbreak. Let me go the day before. Yeah, the day before there weren't any tornadoes. What about the day before that? Nope. So I don't know. I'd have to dig into the times, and I'm not going to do that, but it'd be interesting if like whatever happens over the next couple days started with this rare and unusual tornado in the Salt Lake area. Okay, so right now I have the Kansas City forecast pulled up, and it says there's a likely risk of severe weather today. Wind, tornadoes, and hail are all possible. So if you're in this area, please be safe. Please keep an eye on the weather. A good channel to watch, like I said, is Max Velocity. There's also Ryan Holiall. And then, of course, you can watch the local news, but please just be on top of it. But, okay, so in Utah, so here's the tornado or the landspout. This is from X, Chase Thomason. Check out this landspout taken today around noon. Spin originates near the ground and not within the storm like a normal tornado. Pretty cool. And then he has it located in Daybreak in South Jordan. A lot of the articles, they talk about the fact that it was near Herman. And in fact, even I think it's right here. It says for the tornado in Salt Lake that it was 1 mile northeast of Herman, which another way of saying that is South Jordan. I don't know why they don't just do that. Maybe it has to do with like their like different weather stations. But anyway, so he has this as having taken place in Daybreak. Now, what you may or may not know, I guess it depends on how familiar you are with Utah, but in the Salt Lake Valley in particular. But Daybreak is the same like planned community that you have the Ochre Mountain Temple in. So here's the temple right over here. Okay, Ochre Mountain Temple. All right, so here's the Ochre Mountain Utah Temple. And then over there, I'm not exactly sure where. Here's my little tornado place marker right there. But somewhere in Daybreak is where this occurred. So it's interesting that it happened pretty close to an already existing temple. And then like Grant mentioned, there's going to be a new temple. So this is South Jordan, the city of South Jordan, where this tornado occurred and where the Ochre Mountain Utah Temple is. And then West Jordan is actually north of South Jordan. And according to the sources that I've seen, the temple that was just announced for West Jordan is going to be built somewhere in this area, like around this intersection. And I would imagine probably like right here. They're probably going to, put in a new development or something like that. So it is interesting, it's interesting, especially like just the name of the community, Daybreak, because you could look at that as like the millennium, the new millennial day. That's just one possible layer of this event. But whatever the case, you had that tornado. And then you have these other ones. We're going to talk about them in a minute, but these are the 4 that I'm tracking. I don't know if any others have occurred within these years, but not that I've seen. We'll come back to that in just a minute. So, okay, so Daybreak is where this is occurring, according to Chase Thomason. Here's an article about it. There weren't any other like really interesting details that I was able to pull out of it. There is some video, but I mean, I don't know. And then, like I said, we have this weather event that's taking place right now. Let's go to this like outlook. So you have these different things right now. It's on categorical, which I think is just like a general like risk type model. And around the Kansas City area, which is right here, they are in this like enhanced area. It goes from that's kind of like number. It goes from I guess 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they're in a number 3 right now. So like kind of in the middle. Tornado, and this is for today. Yeah, the 26th. So they also have like I guess they're in this like 10% area. Wind is a much wider area, but still it includes Kansas City. And then hail, well, that's in red. And again, that's kind of like in the middle. It goes 5, 15, 30, 45, 60, and then I guess significant. So anyway, but it's all kind of interestingly kind of centered or includes the Kansas City area. And then you can go to the next day. From what I've been hearing from these weather guys, it seems like Saturday is really going to be the big day. Give me just 1 second. Yeah, so this would be for tomorrow. The categorical outlook or whatever unfortunately extends all the way down to where I'm at. I'm in this area, so that includes Wichita and then down into Oklahoma City. So Oklahoma City, Wichita, Kansas City, and I think probably Omaha. I think they mentioned Omaha a couple times. And unfortunately, Kansas City, Wichita, Oklahoma City are also in this area for tornadoes. Wind also not looking good. And again, same places, Oklahoma City, Wichita, and Kansas City. And then hail also not looking good. So prayers would be appreciated. I'm not too worried about it. You know, we have an emergency plan in place, but you never know. You need to be careful. And if you live in these areas, please watch the weather. But anyway, yeah, so here's some different pictures and different angles of this tornado in daybreak. So it's a very, very unusual sight. Now, I wanted to know how many days had gone by between this tornado and the last one that I'm tracking. The last one that I'm tracking was from June 1st of last year. And so it turns out that was between those dates, including the final date, was 330 days. And that's just kind of a nice even number. 33 has significance. I know a lot of times people's minds go to the Freemasons and the 33rd degree of the Scottish Rite, and you know they get into conspiracies and stuff like that, and that's understandable because they do a lot of weird things with that number. But I think that it's a number that also has significance in our church, according to truth. You know, because just for example, one of the significant things about 33 excuse me, is that's how old Christ was when he was crucified. And it shows up other places too, but it's a special number. 33 came up. I'm not going to double check it right now, but I'm pretty sure that when I did that video about the number of temples that have been announced by the presidents of the church, I think the year that had the most temples announced, or maybe it was dedicated. No, I think it was dedicated. I don't remember the year, but it was during President Hinckley's time, and there were 33 temples dedicated in that year, which up till that point, that was the most number of temples dedicated in a year, I think. I'd have to double check, but it was something like that, okay? So it's just an interesting number, but 330 days between these two tornadoes. The last one was this, and it was in Herman, so not in South Jordan, but in Herman. This is from Allison Kroghan, landspout tornado in Herman today. Here's another video of it from Ben McConkey. I wonder if he's related to Bruce R. McConkey. Here's another one. Now with this picture, I was able to tell exactly where this took place, because you see this like, so this is like an elementary school, right? You have the basketball hoops and whatever. You see how like the building has this kind of like lighter top, and then it has, let me see if I can zoom in. No, when I zoom in, it actually zooms out, of course. But you see how it has like this light top, and then there's like a big dark stripe and then a smaller stripe underneath. I looked for elementary schools in that area, and I think it's this one because it has that same feature where you have like the darker stripe and then the smaller, darker stripe. So I think this was pretty much at Ridgeview Elementary School. Let me know if you're in this area or if you heard about this. But if we go to Google Earth, so here are the locations of these two landspouts. The more recent one right here by the Ochre Mountain, Utah Temple, and then this one that took place on June 1st, 2023. So that's now 2 years in a row that we've had these landspouts. Okay, let's go back here. And then there's this one. Now, this is where things for me start to get really interesting because this was an actual tornado in North Salt Lake. It was an EF1. Okay, so that's really strange to have an actual, like this type of tornado along the Wasatch Front. But this happened in North Salt Lake. And this one I have down as a church-specific sign. You may remember that I have this spreadsheet. It's called Signs Church Specific. And today I decided to highlight in this gray color any events that have to do with wind, whether it's a derecho or tornadoes. And that's what I have right now. So on the 2nd of September, there was this tornado. Let me tell you why I think it's significant or why it's a church-specific sign. Okay, so here's another, like a better image of it. And there's videos and stuff that you can find. Here's the location. So this is what I used to like put it on Google Earth. So I knew exactly where it was at. So I think this has to do with an elder Dean Davies. And no, I don't think I'm related to him. Not that I know. Has the same last name. But Elder Dean Davies, 69, dies of cancer after almost a decade of service as a general authority and years in church employment. Here he is. Okay, so it says, Elder Dean Davies, husband, father, grandfather, and dedicated disciple, died Tuesday, August 31st, 2021 in North Salt Lake. And guess what? He passed away, and then 2 days later, on the 2nd of September, see right here, September 2nd, you had a tornado 2 days after he died. And guess where it was at? It was in North Salt Lake. You can see that right here. The tornado that impacted Woods Cross in North Salt Lake yesterday was preliminarily classified as an EF1. Okay, whatever. So isn't that kind of strange that we would have this this general authority at the time that he passed away? He was a 70. He passes away. He lives in North Salt Lake, and 2 days later, you have this rare tornado in North Salt Lake. So let's go to Google Earth. So if you're not familiar with the Salt Lake area, you have Salt Lake City, and then you have another city. It's a separate city called South Salt Lake, but you also have North Salt Lake City, which is a separate city from Salt Lake. So, like right here. So this is where it took place. You know, we have a temple nearby. Of course, you know, there's a lot of temples in this area, but here's the Bountiful Utah Temple. And I have to update my Google Earth, by the way. It's been hard to keep on top of like all the new announcements and stuff, so I have some work to do. But this is essentially where this tornado took place 2 days after he passed away. I wanted to know, and I've already done a couple of videos about him. That's why I'm able to just bring this up quickly. So I wanted to know what, you know, was there something interesting about him? Like, why would you have this event? Like, is it connected? I don't know. Well, let me tell you a little bit about him. So this is from Deseret News, remembering Elder Dean M. Davies, who said the church wanted Temple Square to become a Christian destination like the Vatican. Okay, before you recoil too much, let me just read what it says here. During the question and answer session, so this is like a press briefing that has to do with the renovations of Temple Square. During the question and answer session after the news conference, one man tried to lift the media's eyes to a broader vision. You're missing the big picture, he said. The church had a grander plan for Temple Square. In fact, church leaders' definition of what that term meant was growing too, something that remains overlooked by nearly all media and church members. Quote from, I'll just read it how it's printed. Quote, there haven't been really too many questions about the renovation of the plaza to the east. So he's referring to, let's zoom in on this. So here's Temple Square and the plaza to the east. I think he's referring, well, when we say plaza, you have the Main Street Plaza, and then you also have this block over here that has the church office building, the administration building, Relief Society building, Joseph Smith Memorial building. And so this is the setup, right? And what's interesting, I'm just going to point this out again. New Jerusalem in Independence, Missouri was going to have 24 temples. It was going to be a 24 temple complex. And when Brigham Young brought the Saints to Utah and established Salt Lake, they were going to try and pattern it in the same way, roughly, as what New Jerusalem was going to be. Things, just for practical reasons, it didn't really work out as there was growth over time. But what's interesting to note is that just like the New Jerusalem, you have these two blocks. Now, there's only one temple. There's not a 24 temple complex, but the Salt Lake Temple is in the same location that the primary temple or the main temple would have been for New Jerusalem. It would have been here. There'd be a temple on the north and the south, and then you'd have 3 more behind, and then 3 more behind. Okay. Or no, sorry. You'd have 4, like 12 on this block and then 12 on this block. But the Salt Lake Temple is in the relative location where the main temple would have been in New Jerusalem. And then in the case of Salt Lake, Temple Square, and this other block, you do have all these different buildings that have different functions. And that does seem to be essentially how the New Jerusalem would be set up. The temples would have different functions. Like the primary temple, it seems to me, would have been the equivalent of the administration building, where like the offices of the First Presidency and the Quorum of the 12. And then you'd have other temples that have different functions. Not, maybe some of them would be ordinance temples, I don't know. But it seems like they would have different functions, kind of like what you have here, if that makes sense. So anyway, Elder Davies is talking about how, well, let's get back to it and I'll show you what he says. So he says, that's a pretty significant effort also. All I would add on this is that we want to make the plaza area to the east of the temple even more public and friendly. There will be new seating areas and new corridors. It's something that you ought to contemplate also. It's not just the temple, but it includes all the way to State Street. So all the way to right here. So these 2 blocks. That will be an integral part of this as we tie together Temple Square into one great whole. End quote. He already had redefined what Temple Square is, adding an entire city block. But he wasn't done. Quote, especially, we want to continue to emphasize that this is the Savior's house and this is his church. And so we will make every effort to introduce some new thematic elements that will help visitors to Salt Lake. We want them to think of Salt Lake just as easily as they think of Jerusalem or the Vatican as a place where Christianity really has its heart. End quote. And then it says, after serving as a counselor in the church's presiding bishopric from 2012 to 2020, he had been called as a General Authority 70 in April 2020. He was 5 days shy of his 70th birthday, which means he had completed his service as a 70, which means he had completed his service as a 70 this summer and would have received emeritus status during General Conference next month, because that's when they're typically released, is after their 70th birthday. So I don't know. Oh, I think there was one other thing. Maybe it was on this one over here. Yeah. A diverse real estate and construction career served him and his faith well when he was hired as the church's director for real estate, and later as managing director of the physical facilities department and managing director of special projects, overseeing temple design and construction. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it. I don't know, but the fact remains, and I'm not laughing at his death, he passed away. He's from North Salt Lake, and 2 days later in North Salt Lake, there's a tornado. I don't know what it means, but I don't know. And then it says, during the April 2012 General Conference, Elder Davies was called to serve as second counselor in the presiding bishopric, working alongside then presiding bishop Gary E. Stevenson, who is now an apostle, and his fellow counselor, who is now the presiding bishop, Bishop Gerald Casse. He would later serve as Bishop Casse's first counselor. So I don't know. I feel like he was like a key player. Maybe there's more that he did that we don't know of at this point. I don't know, but this is what happened. So, okay. And then lastly, and by the way, I've done lots of videos about tornadoes, both in the Salt Lake area and other ones. So if you do a search on my channel for tornado, you can find all these that I've already done, and they are worth watching. But the last one that we're going to talk about is this really crazy, and for me, this is the craziest one. The downtown Salt Lake City tornado of August 11th, 1999. Here's a couple pictures. There's also YouTube videos, like raw video that you can watch of this insane and very unlikely event. It's already unlikely that there would be like a tornado of this size along the Wasatch Front. But on top of that, it went through a major American city, and that's more on the rare side too. So you have those two things together. And this was just a few months before the year 2000. And I tend to think that that's why this happened when it did. There may be more to this day. We've talked about the number 11 a number of times. President Nelson, when he did the give thanks message on YouTube and social media, initially Sherry Dew and the people that she worked with recommended to him that he do some kind of message for members because of the pandemic. And he's like, okay, that's a good idea. Let's think about this. And then the next day, I guess he had revelation that night, and he said, okay, this is a good idea, but it's not going to be just for the members. It's going to be for the entire world. And I want it done at this date, this time. I want the video to be this long. And it turned out that it was November 20th of 2020. So the 11th month, 20th day, 2020. And the length of the video was 11 minutes, and it was released at 11 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. So you had all those 11s, you know. I think that 11 is an important number. I don't know why, but like whenever you have like these double numbers like 11, 22, 33, it seems like there's something to that. But whenever I think of 11, I think of like a pathway, because visually it looks like a path. You have these two parallel lines. But whatever the case, whatever you make of it, this happened just a few months before the turn of the millennium. Here's another. This is from Salt Lake Tribune. So you have all this like raw video that you can watch. And then interestingly, there's one video that's, available on YouTube of this wedding that was taking place. And it has some footage of the tornado, because the tornado essentially nicked Temple Square and the temple. And, you're always going to have weddings going on all the time at the Salt Lake Temple. It's like one of the most popular temples for... Let's see if you can kind of see it like right here. There's the tabernacle. But it's not unusual to have weddings going on at the Salt Lake Temple. But it's just interesting that we have that this is some of the footage that we have right now from that day. A wedding is a big symbol of the second coming. Here they are. Like after it was done, like everyone kind of like running away. I wonder if they knew, oh wow, look at this over here. I don't know what all this is, but there's like some destruction right here. There was destruction from this tornado. It hit the Delta Center, which I don't know what it's called now, but that's where the Utah Jazz play, and it hit some other buildings too. Oh yeah, here's some of the destruction and stuff. So I wonder if they realized that it was a tornado, because if it was me, I wouldn't have, unless I got like a good look at it. I don't know if they did. I would have assumed that it was just like really strong wind from a storm or something like that. Wow, that is so crazy. So if you guys know who these people are, I would love to talk to one of them or both of them. Um, I don't know if they ever thought that this would like end up in a YouTube video like this, but anyway, it was just a very strong or a very strange occurrence. You know, on this day, I've told this story before. I remember this day very well because I was in high school at the time. It was my sophomore year, and I was at football practice. It was just before the school year started, and we were doing 2-a-day football practice. And I think it was like the second practice of the day. We had just got done. I was in the locker room, and then, people started talking about a tornado in downtown Salt Lake. And I was like, what? No, are you serious? And then, I don't know. It was just like the feeling that I had when I heard that was like, what the heck? That's impossible. And I felt at that time that it was a sign, that it was like some kind of sign, because a tornado in Salt Lake City, again, that's not a typical thing that happens. I mean, you guys think about it like this. Okay, so we're just talking about the Salt Lake Valley and the Wasatch Front. Okay, and these are just the ones that I'm tracking. But look, you essentially have almost 4 years in a row. We're missing 1 year, but you have, okay, so you have this one in 1999, but then all this time goes by, and then suddenly you start having these tornadoes in landspouts. So you have the one in 2021, and then as far as I know, there wasn't one in 2022 in the Salt Lake area, and then 2023, and then 2024. Why all of a sudden are we having tornadoes in Salt Lake and along the Wasatch Front? Like that by itself, I feel like we should take note of that. That's strange. That by itself is probably a sign. So anyway, you can go to my spreadsheet, again, called Signs Church Specific, and the wind events that I'm not going to, this one that just happened in Daybreak, I'm not sure that I'm going to put it on here just yet, unless there's like something big that happens in Kansas City or something like that. Because then I feel like there's enough like, oh, okay, you had this initial tornado in Daybreak, and then you had, this that happened in Kansas City. At that point, I feel like it'd be solid enough to say, okay, this is like a church specific sign, but we'll have to wait for the next couple days to see what happens. So what I have so far is the Utah-Wyoming derecho of 1994. Unusual derecho. A derecho, if you don't know, it's basically it's like an inland hurricane. It's not a hurricane, but it's hurricane strength winds that go in a straight line for, X amount of miles, like something like 200 miles. So to have that in Utah, just like tornadoes, is rare. But you have this unusual derecho in Utah the day after President Ezra Taft Benson passed away. So here's a second wind event that takes place shortly after a general authority passes away. I think it's a thing. At least it's happened twice, it seems. And then here's the downtown Salt Lake tornado, August 11th, 1999. The North Salt Lake tornado, 2 days after Elder Dean Davies passed away in North Salt Lake. And then this more recent one, this was crazy too. Another derecho, but this time it went through Nauvoo. And there was a miracle that took place. There was a pioneer, like a youth group that was doing a pioneer trek, and they got to safety just in time. And I interviewed the lady, Elaine, right here. She was involved with that pioneer trek, and she told the story. This got published in the news, and then I that's how I found out about her. I reached out. Turned out she was already a subscriber, which is bizarre for me to think. But yeah, she tells the story, and also I have footage of it. I have it here somewhere. But if you watch this video, I have footage of them in like a barn. Here it is. safe from this derecho. There were trees that were toppled. They got out of this truck just in time before a tree hit the truck. It was a miracle that took place. And this was in Nauvoo. So you have these wind events in our very special church sites. I think that we should pay attention. I'll put the link for this in the description box below, along with all these other things, except for the X stuff. I'll just repost that on my X account if you want to refer to that again. But okay, so here's the latest wind event, near the Ochre Mountain, Utah temple, and we'll see if this is somehow connected with something that happens in Kansas City. But that's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.